Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I am your host, Rob Z. These are true testimonies of breakthrough. That's what we do here on the show. This platform is helping you find breakthrough in your life personally and professionally. Today, we have the powerful, the wonderful Esther Avant with us on the podcast. And Esther, I'd like to jump in right off the bat with a powerful question. And you had mentioned about throughout your 20s being stuck in this place of obsessing over fitness and nutrition. And that always leads to burnout. It leads to ebbs and flows and how you stay consistent with what you do with your fitness and nutrition. How did you end up finding that healthy balance? And talk a little bit about that journey and the impact it had on you.
Yeah, great question. And thank you for having me. Throughout my 20s, like you said, my background is in exercise science. That's what my degree is in. I was a personal trainer starting in college and then got into nutrition coaching. So I had a ton of textbook knowledge about these things, which led to me putting a lot of pressure on myself to, be able to execute them. And that's where I was struggling. I was exercising a ton. You could probably argue over exercising. I was very rigid with my nutrition, which, as many people have experienced, that level of kind of restriction and rigidity generally leads to the pendulum swinging the other way. So I was very textbook Monday through Thursday, quote unquote, perfect. And then really kind of going off the rails from midday Friday till midnight Sunday. And it was just rinsing and repeating for a really long time. And I looked fine. I wasn't, super underweight or super overweight. I certainly didn't look like a person who exercised as much as I did, but more than anything, I was just constantly thinking about food and getting in a workout. And I didn't feel like I had much freedom when it came to those things. It sort of felt like I was a slave to them. Mm-hmm. And the thing that ended up really helping the most is a kind of a light bulb moment that a lot of my clients have as well, which is the realization that up until this point, I have been essentially bashing my head against a wall, trying to do the same thing over and over. That continues to not work. So every Monday, I tell myself I'm starting over and I'm going to be perfect and I'm not going to blow it this weekend. And then every weekend, I would blow it this weekend, and around I went. So I finally had this realization of, if you don't change how you're trying to get yourself out of this, then nothing is going to change. So although this, any alternative might be unfamiliar and really kind of unknown at this point, what do you have to lose? Because what you're already doing isn't working. And that really sort of opened my eyes up to, there are alternatives to this. And that's when I started practicing more self-compassion and trying to get a better understanding of, why am I doing this? It's funny how when you're stuck in a cycle like that, you're not making the connections. Whereas when you're free of it, it's such an obvious like neon sign flashing that like, yeah, Esther, the reason you're binge eating on the weekend is because you're trying to live on 1,000 calories 4 days in a row and your body's trying to get some food in you. Like it's so obvious when you're not in it. But once I started kind of giving myself the compassion to say, it's okay that you binge, like, let's try to figure out where this is coming from. And I started, getting some clarity. That was when I was able to then sort of parse out, all right, well, what would it look like if I didn't restrict so much during the week? And that feels scary and uncomfortable. And like I might, gain a ton of weight overnight, or, all sorts of, bad things could happen. But I'm already in a place that I'm not happy with and that isn't working well for me. So why not give it a try? And that's sort of what led to my eventually getting out of the stuckness.
So this is really good because I can recall it was throughout my 20s actually. Also, I had my first son when I was I believe I was 31, and so things started to really change then. But I can recall back then I was in the gym 5-6 days a week. And it's like the gym and fitness and eating becomes like a second job. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you're thinking about it nonstop. It's like, I don't get paid to do this. but I'm like obsessed with it, but I'm never happy about it. I'm never
Hmm.
satisfied. I'm never content. It's exhausting. I can very vividly remember that happening. And I remember when my son was born and like I was tired because, you know, you have a kid. It's like I can't get to the gym 5 days a week. I can't be at the gym for 2 hours every day. I mean, I could, but I'd be sacrificing other things. And that was like unacceptable. I had such a hard time with that. And I eventually I just gave up for a while. I didn't work out. I didn't go to the gym for probably 4 years. I just stopped. And so I wanted to share that just because right off the bat, it becomes like this unhealthy obsession. And I don't want this, I'm not making this about me. I'm thinking about what was going on. You just made me think about things at the time that were going on. Like going to the gym actually was unhealthy for me. I find now I have the best workouts at home in my backyard or like, you know, just in nature, whatever, that don't happen at the gym. I know that's not everybody, but we have to all find our own balance and what works for us and give ourselves grace, right? You didn't say it there, but that's what I heard was like, you got to give yourself grace.
Hmm.
For crying out loud. Take it easy on yourself. How did that end up happening for you? What balance did you find that actually worked for you where you started to feel content? You started to feel really happy with the way things were going. Maybe physically the way you looked, but also just the way you felt. What was a big shift you noticed that made that change?
Yeah, it's been an evolution, and it's been more, small, subtle shifts than one sort of uh, big shift. But one of the things that really stands out is around that time when I was really kind of in the throes of binging and restricting, and I had this realization that, I could try to do things differently. One of the things that was so powerful was one night after another binging episode, I wrote down exactly how I was feeling. Because part of what's so hard about it is leading up to it, all you can think about is like, I just want this food. And then afterwards, almost immediately afterwards, you feel terrible about it. But
Yeah.
it's like you can't remember how terrible you're going to feel because all you can think about is getting the food. So I kind of brought the future to the present by writing myself this note of, it's 10 p.m. You just polished off a box of cereal and you're feeling really ashamed and guilty and embarrassed and mad at yourself. Like, this sucks. You hate feeling this way. And I didn't really know what purpose it was going to serve, except that then in subsequent nights, I had that note in my own words as this reminder. Like, this is what's on the other side of the binge for you. It's not, this is what's going to happen again. It's not going to be different. This is what it always is. And that's what sort of led me to kind of test myself a little bit with like, just one time, I wonder what it would be like to have the cravings and to want to binge, but to not do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that's going to be hard. And I know it's going to be uncomfortable. But if I can just do it one time, I'm not committing to a lifetime of saying no. But if I can just do it once, I'll see what it's like. And then I did. And I wrote myself another note of how proud I was feeling and how glad I was that I stuck it out and I saw my way through without giving in. And the contrast was so stark that once I sort of saw the choice as this fork in the road of, do you want to keep choosing the food that is going to put you in, this cycle where you're feeling bad about yourself all the time and then you try to compensate the next day and around we go, or do you want to take this path less traveled and start making yourself proud more often?
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly wasn't perfect. It's everybody's progress that I've worked with anyway looks like, I like to use the analogy of like you walk the same route every day and there's this hole in the sidewalk, and for a while every day you trip in the hole and fall in it and are surprised, and then you start to be like, there's a hole somewhere on this street, but you still trip in it, and then every so often you remember and you go around it, but over time you start falling in it less often, and eventually you realize maybe I'll just go on the other side of the street, or I'll take a different route and I'll just avoid it altogether. So it's not like I, wrote these notes and overnight had fixed everything, but it just, every so often I was staying strong and not doing it. And each time I did, I felt those feelings of pride and I wanted more of that. And over time, those just kind of stacked up until I realized feeling good is so worth all of the discomfort of making this choice. And then it got easier and easier to make from there. And that was like the big thing. And then the rest of kind of my balance has evolved. Like having kids is a big monkey wrench that kind of changes everything. And being able to recognize that there's no like one set formula that this is how it's always going to be, but it's more so I know that my seasons of life are going to change, and with it, what I define as healthy and how I approach my health is going to be different, and being willing to kind of evolve with those seasons.
Yeah, that's really, really good. It makes me think of the quote. This quote kind of maybe is like it's a reoccurring theme on the show, but the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. That pain of regret is like, man, it's that box of cereal. I freaking love cereal. I could eat an entire box of cereal easily. And it feels so good when you're doing it. It's the afterwards. Well, maybe not the whole time you're doing it, but in the beginning, especially,
at first,
it feels really good. Yeah. But that pain of regret is like, why? Why do I do this to myself? And we all have that thing. It's as simple as there's something laying on the floor over there that I should have picked up 3 days ago. It's still there, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, gosh, man, it's like regret. It's like stupid, but just do it. But that pain of discipline, like, because whenever that craving is happening and that pattern is in, like, those neural pathways are strong, it's like your brain won't stop thinking about it. It like won't shut up, and it's like, I just need to shut this thing up. Mm-hmm. So you do the thing. But that pain of discipline, how good you feel later on, that, like you said, the pride you get out of that, the reward you get out of that, that is like the best feeling in the world. It's like, wow, I did it. And then when you consistently do it and you consistently stack that up, you're like, look who I am now. Look at this version of me who shows up differently in all situations, right? Because of like that one thing that you learned how to keep discipline with. And that discipline then starts to add into other things. I absolutely love that. It's so true. And it's so simple, man. But if you have an addictive personality in that sense, and there's that one thing that like your brain won't shut up about, it's easy not to go do the thing. Like literally, it's just not picking the thing up and eating it or whatever it is. But inside your own mind, that is like the biggest battle. So before we go any further, this is the Unstuck movement. This platform was created to help break through in your life personally and professionally. So we bring incredible guests on who have true testimonies of breakthrough. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com, and also the Pro Podcaster Academy. Launch your own podcast. And if you have a podcast, how do you streamline it? How do you monetize it? I love helping people do that at robzwentz.com. Today with us is Esther Avant, a seasoned health coach, speaker, and author who helps busy professionals break free from the cycle of restrictive diets and burnout. After overcoming her own struggles with binging and overexercising, she now empowers others to build sustainable, balanced, and fulfilling healthy habits. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than having healthy habits in your life. And I imagine this podcast is for high performers or people who want to become a high performer, right? And oftentimes wanting to perform at a high level, you sabotage other things in your life, right? You leave those things by the wayside. So this self-sabotage, why was this happening for you? Why do high performance people do these sorts of things? And how do you retrain that mindset?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it boils down to perfectionism. I know that I identify or have in the past as a perfectionist, and I think a lot of leaders and high performers do, because it can be a good quality. We hold ourselves to a high standard. We expect a lot of ourselves, and therefore we very often rise to the occasion. And also, it is a double-edged sword, because perfectionism can also hold you back from doing things where you aren't sure you're going to be successful, right? The potential for failure is so devastating that we would rather just not try something than to risk the potential of failure. So for a lot of people who maybe don't have a background in exercise or nutrition, don't enjoy sports or active hobbies or have never been taught about healthy nutrition, the thought of being a beginner and learning something new is just very uncomfortable. So better to avoid it. I think often the self-sabotage kind of comes in the form of being so ashamed when we fall short of our impossible standards that we just kind of want to bury our heads in the sand and do something for comfort / distraction. So I feel really bad about this thing. I'm going to throw myself into work, or I'm going to procrastinate with Netflix, or I'm going to eat emotionally. So I think all of that kind of ties into why so many people who are excelling in their careers, who are successful business owners, high-powered leaders, often feel like their health is kind of the one area of their lives that they haven't really gotten a handle on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's usually the comfort, right? It's the thing that's like, oh man, that just makes me feel better whenever it's been a really rough day, or whenever you're working really hard, you got high levels of stress, or whatever it might be. It's, food's a great resource to make yourself feel better in the moment. You talk a lot about compassion, which this is so important. Compassion and ownership, and going back to, I think, the whole idea of grace too. Like, talk a little bit about compassion and ownership, because that's something that we all could benefit from. I can give other people compassion fairly easily. Giving myself compassion can be a lot harder. So speak about that a little bit for yourself and what that journey's been like.
Yeah, I think yours is a very common experience, that we are generally much better at giving others compassion, not ourselves. And I really think that compassionate ownership is kind of the antidote to being a perfectionist and having this all or nothing mentality, because you need both. I like to think of compassion and ownership on the same spectrum, where on one end, you need to give yourself compassion, because that's what will allow you to pick yourself up after a mistake or a slip up or a perceived failure and be willing to try again. We tend to have this really loud inner critic who berates us when we fail. And when we're in that really negative space, why would we want to try again and risk ending right back up where we started? So it causes us to kind of shirk away from the growth opportunity. So we need the compassion. And you're exactly right that sometimes the best way to practice that is to think about how you would respond to another person in your shoes, and then kind of turn that answer back on yourself. But the other piece of it is the ownership, where if we just have compassion and we're always telling ourselves, oh, it's okay, you'll do better next time, oh, it's okay, it's a big deal, we're never actually learning and growing and making progress towards the goal we want to achieve or the person that we want to be. So you also need the ownership piece, which is looking at that misstep or that failure and asking yourself, what could this be teaching me? How can I learn from this so that the next time I try to do this thing, I'm more successful? And that's how you master something, by, as a novice, being willing to try and learn and try and learn. And each time you do that, you're iterating and you're getting better and better at the thing. And I find that people tend to be too heavy on one and too light on the other. So a lot of times the work is kind of figuring out, in this circumstance, do I need more compassion? Do I need more ownership? What does that look like to help myself grow without making myself the problem?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Deciding in which part, at what part of the day, in the situation you're in, is compassion the right answer, or is ownership the right answer? I feel like you could do this both at the same time. You could be compassionate on yourself, but still own the thing, right? And that's the beautiful part of it, because you can own it. Like, this is something I need to do better. This is something I need to get better with. That was my fault, and owning that, but also taking it easy on yourself and not ripping yourself to shreds because you didn't do the right thing.
That's exactly it. So I have a couple, easy examples from yesterday. I mentioned before we hit record that we're traveling. So I'm just kind of like out of my routines, out of sorts a little bit. And a couple of my, kind of big rock, like anchor habits, are drinking my water and getting in my steps. Those are things that I do, pretty much every day. And yesterday I did neither, or at least not to, to my normal kind of expected standard. And that was the perfect opportunity for compassionate ownership of, all right, in the grand scheme of things, this is not a big deal. I'm not going to make a mountain out of a molehill. But also, I don't want this to become a pattern. So what am I going to do differently again. So already I kind of front loaded the day with water. Instead of trying to check things off my to-do list before I took a walk, I did that first. So that's just kind of like what it looks like in real life. It's not this big thing. It's just like, oh, okay, I noticed that happened. It's not a big deal. What am I going to do to ensure better of myself next time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially traveling in water, right? You think you get in a hotel room and you realize, oh crap, I don't have any bottles of water. What am I going to do tomorrow morning when I wake up, right? It's like,
Right.
that's what I was just on, we were just on vacation, and that happened to me, and I was like, shoot, I have nothing to drink tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm not going to drink the tap water, which that's just something I don't do. But yeah, that's and knowing too, it's okay if a day you fall off, 2 days you fall off, right? It's all right. That's okay. And vacations can be really bad for people, right? And we all need vacation. We need that, but they can get so comfortable in that 1 week that when you come back from vacation, you're like, I don't even know what I was doing before. Screw it. Like maybe had a system in place. I'm just abandoning the whole thing. And I think that happens more often than not. I would have to imagine. Getting back on the horse after falling off, what advice do you give to people for that? Because it's a mindset thing, number one, right? You knew what you did before, but how do you motivate yourself to get back to that place?
Yeah, great question. And one like a universal experience of just like, oh, I had these good habits and I fell out of them. Generally for people, it's not the vacation itself. It's the clunky return to real life where it's like, I was only gone for 4 days, but then it took me 8 days to like kind of find my footing again. And that's, that happens every couple months, and like, there goes your consistency. So I think first, this is a little woo-woo, but it really does make a difference, is like, just notice the language you're using around it. We tend to like catastrophize it. We're like, oh, I fell, I got derailed. I fell off the wagon. It's like, when you think about an actual train derailing, it's a super big deal. Like, people die. It costs like millions of dollars. It's like an actual problem. Not drinking your water or, eating a vegetable for a few days, not a derailment. So I think like, just rein in the language and remind yourself, in the grand scheme of things, I have not ruined anything. I'm not back at square one. This isn't a huge setback. The only thing to do now is to just take the next step forward.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be, I don't need to do a lot of planning. I don't need to do sort of compensation. You know what? Now's the time for a 75 hard or a whole 30. I just need to like really hit it hard, and then I'll settle back in. It's like, no, just give yourself a few minutes to think back. Like you said, sometimes you just kind of forget, like, what was I even doing before? Jot down, what are the things that I was doing before vacation or before this break that were helping me feel good? Which of them am I still doing? Which of them have I fallen out of the habit? I always like to use flossing as an example, because it's something that, most people generally do, but we don't have any sort of like emotional ties to. So if you think about, I often will, go away for a week and like forget the floss, and it's just, I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot the floss. I don't have an identity crisis of like, oh, I'm not a person who cares about my oral hygiene anymore. I just don't floss for a few days, and then I come home and I start flossing again. You can do the same thing with any of your other healthy habits. Like, don't make it a big thing. Oh, this is what I always do. I have a good couple weeks and then I fall off. And no, I'm just going to start eating vegetables again. I'm just going to start drinking my water again. I'm going to start going to the gym again. That's it. Is like, don't wait for the motivation to strike you. Just take the action and, use all of the cliche tips for that. Put it in your calendar, enlist support, all those things. But like, just take that first step, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by how quickly you can then slip back into those routines.
Great advice. It's the all or nothing. Man, I didn't do the one thing, so I'm going to throw all the other stuff away, and I'm just going to move on. Now my life's miserable. Now I have to start from scratch. Yeah, it's really funny. We do that so often. I had a friend who I'd gotten him into, well, I shouldn't say I did, but I was encouraging him to read, and he was reading every day for like, months. And we hadn't talked, and we sat back down, and I'm like, so what do you read, man? He's like, well, a few months ago or whatever, a couple of weeks ago or whatever, I didn't read the one day, and I just didn't read that day. And the next day I just didn't read again. I just stopped reading. It's just, and he said, I just don't think I'm a reader. It's like, oh my gosh. The thing that makes you a reader is you pick the book back up and start reading it again. Right. But it's this like, well, that I tried it and I failed, and now I can't do it anymore, which is really silly when you think about it. It's silly. because you can literally just pick the thing up and start doing it again. Like, and then you become the person again. But that's what we do to ourselves. So here, saying it out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but that's what we do to ourselves, like over and over and over again. We got to pause real fast to shout out the sponsor of the show. When we come back, though, you talk about the big rocks that busy people should focus on to make the biggest impact with their exercise and nutrition. I want to talk about those big rocks when we come back. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So, Esther, talk about those big rocks. What are those big things that move the needle?
Yeah, so I call them big rocks through a kind of variation of an anecdote you've probably heard about how if you have an empty jar and you're trying to fill it, what's the most efficient way to do that? If you put a bunch of sand and pebbles in first, you can't fit the big rocks. If you put the big rocks in first, it's basically full right away. And then you can still put in some pebbles and sand if you want. So I had this realization that most people approach their health sand and pebbles first. They're doing a ton of really small, largely inconsequential things that leave them spread really thin, overwhelmed, exhausted, with not a lot to show for it. They have, thousands of pebbles and sand in the jar, and it's still, barely full. So you take the opposite approach. You figure out what's going to give me the most bang for my buck. What's going to help me get to my goal the fastest? And if I'm only focusing on a handful of things, then I have more resources to devote to them and to making those feel easy. And then once I've mastered those, my jar is pretty much full. If I want to try some of the smaller stuff, I can, but I probably won't feel the need for it. So part of why it's so hard for people to be consistent is that they're trying to do too much. In addition to the perfectionism, we consider kind of like all of the healthy things on the same field. So it's like you hear that Pilates is good, and bar, and yoga, and boxing, and strength training, and walking, and should you wear a weighted vest, and should you be doing plyometrics, and you should be eating this and that. And it's like you have so many things that you're too overwhelmed to do anything. So the big rocks just strip away all of the noise and help you focus on what matters the most. For most people with kind of general health related goals, your total caloric intake is a big rock. Whether or not you want to count calories or really pay attention to them, that is what is going to determine whether you gain, lose, or maintain weight. So having some understanding of your personal energy needs and how to meet them with foods that make you feel good is a worthy endeavor. That is a big rock. Your protein and your fiber intakes are both also big rocks. They're going to help you build and retain muscle. They're going to help with satiety. Fiber is a good proxy for just an overall nutritious diet. So those are what I consider the nutrition big rocks. You could add hydration in there as well. And then exercise wise, your foundation is daily movement. Steps is again a good proxy, but just generally like sitting and laying all day, or are you getting up and moving around? Are you strength training 2 or 3 times a week? Are you taking rest and recovery days so that you're actually maximizing the benefits of the work that you're putting in? Those are your exercise big rocks. Then if you want to do other stuff that you enjoy, your pickleball, your boating, all sorts of things, absolutely do them. But they are sort of the tip of the pyramid, not the base of it. And then lifestyle wise, your sleep and your stress management are 2 that are really worthy endeavors that, again, people may not think directly, oh, I'm going to be healthier if I sleep more, or I'm going to eat less if I sleep more. But it has such a cascade effect. When you're under rested, everything is harder. You don't have the same energy. Your cravings are through the roof. Your hunger and satiety hormones are askew. So that's sort of one of those overarching habits that if you focus on first, you're going to find a lot of the other big rocks easier to do consistently.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's really funny. I have a almost 1-year-old right now, and I'm not much of a morning riser, but he is. He's up at 5:30 or 6 every day, and so I let my wife sleep, so I get up with him. And I've noticed that, this goes back to the compassion, giving yourself grace, and understanding that things have seasons, right? So in the mornings we wake up, and I'm like, I don't have enough sleep, and I just want to eat something when I get up. I'm tired, and I'm kind of grumpy. And so I'll have a cup of coffee, and I'll have some toast. Today I had some like jelly toast, and I'm like, I know I shouldn't be, because I like to I had a good system going. I'm just going to give you my thing for a second. I had a great system going of not eating until noon every day. I was doing intermittent fasting, and it was great. So for the past year, since he came along, I pretty much had given that up. I kind of I'll fast later on. Right now, I guess I'm like, maybe comfort eating in the morning, just because I'm hungry and I'm like low sleep, those sorts of things. And so giving myself grace for that has been really, really helpful. And I'm curious your advice on that area, right? Because things happen in seasons, and to know this isn't going to be forever, but maybe for the next 4 months, this is something that I'm going to do, and being okay with that. I don't even know if I have a question around that. I'm just saying what's been going on with me. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you really nailed it. It's reminding yourself that, nothing is forever, both to the good and the bad, that, especially when you're in the throes of early parenting, remembering that, this is the only time in their lives they're going to be so dependent on me. That doesn't mean, and I think this is a really important point, it doesn't mean that your needs get forgotten about. It's not, well, in 5 years when they're in school, then I can start taking care of myself again. But it goes back to that grace and that compassion to say, okay, my life is drastically different than it was a year ago. It makes sense then that I need to maybe make some shifts in how what I do to take care of myself. So for me, when I had my son, prior to that, I would go to a gym. I would spend at least an hour there. It was like part of my social life. It was a big part of my day. We were living in Hawaii at the time, and there's a lot of traffic. And the thought of, putting my newborn in the car to sit in traffic, to go to the gym, to potentially have him cry the whole time, to not be able to get a workout in, to hit traffic on the way back, to have spent half a day to get nothing done, was just really unappealing. And that's when I started working out at home. And like you, that was a big shift for me. But here I am 7 years later. I'm loving it. I'm in probably the best shape that I've been in. My workouts are shorter. They require less equipment. I'm less, rigid about them. So reminding yourself that things looking different isn't a permission slip to forget about yourself or put that on the back burner. It's an opportunity for you to say, well, what's realistic right now? So if my eating patterns have changed, that's okay. How do I support myself right now? And knowing that it's going to take a little bit of experimenting, a little bit of trial and error, and that's fine, because everything that I experiment with is just giving me experience, so that when I enter the next season of my life, I have other experiences to call on and be like, this didn't work for me then, but based on how things have changed now, it might be worth revisiting. And you're just always kind of being willing to experiment and iterate and find something that works for you, no matter what else is going on in your life.
Yeah, it's really the key ingredient is flexibility, creativity, embracing what's going on. It's so much. I mean, it's so valuable. I hate to run. Okay, I never liked to run. I used to run when I was younger. My son recently he's 11. He wanted to start running, and so I started running with him. So we did a mile around our house. I mapped it out on Google Maps, and it was a mile. And I'm like, oh wow, that's a mile. So we ran it, and it was like pretty easy. And I was like, that was actually fun, but I don't like to run. So literally now, for the past couple of weeks, I've been running like 3 or 4 days a week for a mile. And I'm like, this is not even something that I used to tell people I hate running. Like I hate doing this, and I'm having fun. And I'm like, it's just being flexible and open, like, and letting your like diet, also letting it be flexible, letting your workouts be flexible and be open to like trying different things. So I'm curious, you've been working out from home now for like 7 years. Same here as far as like, I feel better working out at home. I get more done in less time. I'm not stuck in like the ego trap of the gym, which I found that to be a major problem. And this thing in the gym of like, I've got to be there for at least an hour, if not more. Like, do you encourage people that you work with to work out from home? Is there something, are there more benefits to that you find than going to a gym? I'm curious your stance on that.
That's a great question. I think it's really person dependent. I know, obviously during the pandemic, everybody started working out at home. And for a good chunk of my clients, they started working out at home, got some equipment, haven't gone back. Other clients have just sort of a personality that does better knowing I have to go to a place for a specific thing and it's at this time. So a little bit of outside accountability, whether it's seeing a personal trainer or going to a group class, or just knowing like I'm paying this membership fee and therefore I'm going to get my money's worth. So I wouldn't say, one's better than the other. And again, it can also vary from, within one person from time to time, where if I were younger and say if I were new in an area, one of the first things I would do is join a gym. Because where else am I going to find other like-minded, active, young people like myself there? But being, almost 40, having a family, being established, and time being a premium, like you, I'm like, I want my commute to the gym to be the 15 seconds it takes me to get to the garage. I want to be, done in 30 minutes or less. So that's what works for me now. But who knows? Maybe when my son is in college and I'm an empty nester and I'm looking for social connection, maybe a gym will be appealing to me then.
Yeah. And pickleball, right? That's when pickleball really kicks in too.
Yes, you're exactly right.
So I think the message I'm getting here, and I listen for themes in these episodes, the theme is it's flexibility and allowing yourself to be flexible in. This is especially I think in diet and in fitness, people get locked into, no, this is how I do it. And even as you were just saying what you were saying, I just went through a season where I did go back to the gym because my son's school was right next to his school. So I could drop him off and go to the gym. That worked up until summertime hit. Then summertime, he's not going to school. The gym's 10 minutes away. I'm not driving to the gym anymore. So I'm like, I'm paying for this. I'm not even using it. I cancel the membership, start working out at home. And it's like embracing that flexibility.
Yeah.
And this is the season that I'm in right now, is like embracing being flexible. And I can be, and I think this is a high performer thing too. You get in routine and you get rigid and you're thinking of how this is how it has to be done. But being flexible in that area is so freeing because number one, you're giving yourself flexibility is compassion. They kind of go hand in hand. You can't be flexible and be uncompassionate towards yourself, because being flexible means you're open to things changing. So there's so much value in that, and we need to be able to embrace that more. As we come to the end of this episode, I'm curious for yourself. I want people to check out your website, make sure they go see what you do. EstherAvant.com, AVANT. The link is in the bio. What do you help people with the most whenever you're working with them? What are maybe the one or two biggest things that come up over and over again? We may have already touched on them. I'm curious, what are they?
Yeah, I'd say we touched on 2 out of 3. We touched on the overwhelm and kind of lack of time stuff. We touched on the perfectionism, all or nothing thinking. The one we didn't talk about as much is the lack of support and help. And it's not because those things aren't available to us. It's because, again, maybe it's ego, maybe it's just discomfort asking for help. It feels like a sign of weakness, or like we should be able to do things on our own. I've certainly felt that way myself. But the reality of it is a high performer, a leader should be asking for help, because that is the fastest way to get to where you want to be. It's the fastest way to acquire new skills, to develop new systems, new routines, and to say, okay, that person is where I want to be. I could figure it out on my own. It would take me a lot longer. I'd stumble around a lot and get frustrated, or I can ask them what they did. I can get into, sort of a mentorship type situation where I'm learning from somebody who's walking the walk. And I think the the feeling of trying to kind of do it all alone is the one area that we haven't really talked about yet. But that when you do open yourself up to help, whether it's in the form of professional, guidance and expertise, whether it's in the form of a support network that just, believes in you and wants to see you succeed, or if it's having people who are kind of right alongside you in the process, it all just helps you get from A to B faster, bridge that gap more quickly than you could on your own.
100%. Yes. Mentorship, coaching, those will help you by leaps and bounds. It's so hard to see yourself. You can see other people pretty well. It's really hard to see you well. And the better you see yourself, the better you can actually see other people. So that's spot on. Excellent advice. If they go to your website and check out what you do, how can they reach out to you there? Do you do online coaching and things like that? What do you do?
Yeah, all of our coaching is online. I also do keynote speaking and workshop facilitating. So I do those both online, virtually, and in person. So if you have a group or a team that is in need of any sort of health, wellness related training, I'd be happy to talk about that. We also do one-on-one health and weight loss coaching. We've worked with a wide variety of clients. Most of our clients at this point are midlife women going through perimenopause and kind of all of those related changes. But if you have a health related goal, we can help you get there.
Amazing. I love that. EstherAvant.com. The link is in the bio. And as we come to the end of this episode, I want to thank you, number one, for being here and doing what you do. This is important work that everybody needs fitness. Everybody needs healthy nutrition in their life. And it's oftentimes, especially when life gets busy, those are the things that fall by the wayside the fastest, and you can forget about the quickest. So I want to end with this question. Pretend that you're never going to talk to me again. Pretend you're never going to talk to anybody who's listening or watching ever again. What message would you leave us with?
I think the main thing is to take action on something that you've heard today. I know how easy it is to just kind of churn through podcasts and books and trainings and all these things, but not actually implement any of it and just kind of collect knowledge. But the change and the growth come from doing stuff. So my challenge to you would be to find a takeaway from this episode, something that just kind of stood out to you, and do something about it, and let this episode be a catalyst for your own positive change.
I love that. Absolutely. Find something simple, something impactful, practical, put it into work, and you can start that whole process right there. Esther, thank you so much for your time today. Another true testimony of breakthrough. So cool to have you here. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement.